Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome back to another episode of SOL, aka Soul, aka Student of Life. Welcome back thank you for joining me for another episode. Now today we are talking, our topic for today is you are the sky, not the storm. Feel it, don't be it. Now, what's important to keep in mind is the fact that lenses exist and that we all have them. This being said, everyone's perspective has a structure of the self viewing the outside world. As we observe and interact with the world around us, these experiences develop and solidify our habits and beliefs. Yet it is in the absorption of the external into ourselves, without the self-awareness, where we begin to identify with the situation instead of allowing it to exist as it really is outside of us. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an internal reaction to something happening externally. In fact, it's perfectly normal. What's being addressed here is the dilemma that occurs when you allow this internal reaction to take hold in such a way that you no longer are allowing yourself the space to actually assess a situation, and instead you're allowing that emotion, thought process, whichever, behind that immediate reaction to guide not only your thinking, yet your words and your overall behavior. So what do? Patience. Patience. Slow down your breathing, slow down your thoughts, and do your best to put your awareness in the moment. Assess the situation as objectively as possible and respond accordingly. When we say you are the sky, not the storm, we are talking about the fact that you are at the center of your experience. Therefore, your awareness will always center around you. Even when you are not being aware of yourself and your attention is completely focused on something outside of you, everything is relative. This is what makes it easier to identify with the things happening externally. So if we are the sky, then the external is the weather. It is the storm, it is the clear skies, it is maybe just a few clouds, it could be the hail, it is whatever. But the weather itself is what we are calling the external. Or I'm sorry, the external is what we're calling the weather. Same difference, I guess. The external includes all things happening outside of you, which is work, current events, school, any secondary character type of thing happening outside of you. That is what we are calling the weather. Everyday life occurs, and it's only natural that through interacting with the outside world that we have emotional reactions. Yet it's key to maintain our focus on the present moment when it comes to responding to any situation accordingly, so as not to get distracted by something occurring internally. Ooh, okay. This is an interesting note. I don't remember writing it like this, but yet it is key to maintain our focus on the present moment when it comes to responding to any situation accordingly, so as not to get distracted by something occurring internally that we may project externally. Ooh. That was actually really key. I thought when I had originally wrote this, my intention was to speak of it more in terms of you are like reacting to something external but really internalizing it. But what I just spoke about is definitely key as well, because we tend to carry a lot of things with us, and I'll talk more about that in the second half of this recording. But yeah. The lenses. We keep talking about the lenses and the lenses. We talked about this in the last episode about how the lenses represent your perspective, and everyone has their own perspective, which is their own internal bias, encompasses their belief system and their values, their morals, and things of that nature. And it is developed by interacting with the world around them. This is key. This is the key part. Your perspective, the lens, is developed by the interaction that you have with the outside world. And it's key to note that one's perspective is based on how the self, you, observe the outside world. This puts said person at the center of each experience. Again, I know that it sounds like I'm repeating a lot of the same things, but I really, really, really want to hone in on the fact that yes, we each have our own perspective, but our perspective is always going to put us at the center, and with it putting us at the center, it's really hard to be objective about so many things. Now, reacting with emotion, so why are we even talking about this instead? Or talking about this today? Because instead of being aware in the moment, sometimes we react with emotion instead of responding thoughtfully. We lose control over our thought process altogether and sometimes our behavior. And it really affects our objective decision making, which is what I was just talking about. When it comes to reacting versus responding, whether you're in the midst of a situation or when you're processing something retroactively, which is like when you're looking back on something, it is natural for the emotional and irrational thoughts to come. These are your immediate internal reactions. I want to reiterate, it is natural to have an immediate internal reaction, whether this be emotional, irrational, or thoughtful, irrational. It's normal. We're humans. Now, when you absorb this external situation to the degree that you allow this internal reaction to take hold of your mind, therefore the experience in a way that you are when you absorb this external situation to the degree that you allow this internal reaction to take hold of your mind in a way that you are no longer giving yourself the grace nor the space to assess the situation objectively, this is what we're talking about. Instead, you are allowing said emotion, thought process to guide the next thoughts and sometimes words and overall behavior. So what are the benefits of being aware? Again, we're responding thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. We have more control over ourselves and objective decision making. Again, I'm going to keep repeating it. And I'll talk about why later. So, yes, in terms of the how, presence of mind. And as we go on throughout the season, we only have a few more episodes, but as we go on throughout the season, I'm going to keep referring to that presence of mind video because it is so key. The awareness of what you're doing is how you actually are able to do anything. If you're not being aware, then what are you going off of? What are you working on? So, anywho, again, the whole point of how to refocus your mind when you are experiencing something is awareness in the moment, i.e. presence of mind. But especially in high intensity moments, we want to focus on our breathing. Yes, focus on your breathing. You want to slow down if possible, slow down your thoughts and pay attention to what is happening internally as things are unfolding externally, or as you are reliving this experience, if this is happening retroactively. And also, if this is a past event, remind yourself that you are now in the transformed future of said event. Again, if you are retroactively thinking about something that is happening in the past and you find yourself experiencing those emotions again, you want to remind yourself that you are now in the present moment in the transformed future of that past event. This means that you are safe, and remind yourself to breathe. Say it again. Remind yourself to breathe and think as objectively as possible. Focus on the facts. Focus so much more on the facts than you would. Actually, I kind of want to tweak that again. Focusing on the facts can help you to rewrite the story. However, I don't want you to negate your emotions because I definitely believe that your emotions are a guide. However, in terms of trying to rewrite this story, and when you were thinking about things retroactively, try to be as objective as possible and only focus on the facts. Now, take a breath before each time you make an assessment. Assess the facts while still giving others the space to exist as they choose. Respond accordingly. So, again, this last tip, I'm going to reiterate. Take a breath before each time you make an assessment. Assess the facts while still giving others the space to exist as they choose. Respond accordingly. Now, again, Don Luis talked about basically talking about the fact that everyone outside of you is always going to be a secondary character in your story, because you are at the center of your story, making you, yes, the main character. And it's really funny because I feel like with the last couple of years, everyone's like, oh, main character energy. We all have main character energy, honey, because no one else can live your life for you. No one else can experience what you are experiencing for you. So it's actually really hard in your own life not to be the main character. And if you don't feel like the main character in your life, I feel like there are some assessments that need to be made. But yes. You are the sky, not the storm. Feel it, don't be it. You don't have to identify with any set emotion at any given point in time. You don't have to do anything. And sometimes it could be freeing to just experience the feeling or experience said emotion for what it is and then release it. Because we are aware that this emotion is more of a guide to what I'm experiencing, not necessarily the all of what I'm experiencing, if that makes any sense. So let's go ahead and get into the story. I feel as if it took me a long time to really master this principle that we're talking about today, about us being the sky, not the storm. And I think it's only been recently that I realized I'm not the same person who would internalize all the things happening outside of me. Not the way that I used to. And I guess you could say that comes with maturity. You could say that comes with life events. Sometimes it's just, you get tired. But if there's anything that I realized, it's that, I don't know, we talked about the fact that I used to be a super intense bully. Well, super intense for an elementary schooler, a middle schooler, but we actually talk more about the perspective change and basically treating yourself well and treating other people well. But the whole point of it is that I never really had an example for this. It was, I grew up, again, one of five, single mother, and she really hammered in the idea that you only have each other. Kind of, it's you against the world kind of situation. But that's not true. And there were so many times where I found myself sacrificing just because of sacrificing what I needed because of what I believed other people wanted. And yes, that is people pleasing. It's definitely some people pleasing aspect. Yet, it was detrimental. It was so detrimental to the degree that I didn't know what to do with myself by the time I was alone, because I felt like I was never really alone. There's five of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. I was almost never alone. So by the time I was an adult and I was alone, I had no idea what to do with myself. And it was strange. I didn't know who the hell I was. And when something would happen at work, I would just absorb all the energy, whatever conflict was, whatever it was. It could be good, it could be terrible, but I would absorb it because I wasn't filling myself with anything. I did not acknowledge myself as my own sky. I was the clouds, I was the rain, I was the birds in the sky, I was everything in the sky but the sky itself. And the thing is, you get tired. You get tired because of the inconsistencies. You get tired because you depend on other people to feed you the way that you are feeding them. And that's not realistic, and it's irresponsible. So in reality, it took a lot of time, and it took a mental adjustment. It took a lot of programming, and I had to, again, reassess my lens. And because really what happened was, there was a point in time where I started thinking, why? Why am I giving so much out? And I was a young adult at this point, but why am I giving so much out to the world, but I feel like I'm not getting anything back? I always feel like my cup is empty. Why isn't anyone filling to me? Filling into me? What is happening? What's wrong with me? And again, there goes that question. What's wrong with me? So I had to stop asking myself, what's wrong with me? More in, what am I doing that the rest of the world is not? And vice versa. What is the world doing that I'm not doing? Why do these people seem so happy? And the thing is, that's a whole other topic, because appearances are appearances. People can present themselves however they want to appear in the world. So that's a totally different topic. However, I found that with sacrificing myself, I expected others to sacrifice themselves to meet my needs the way that I did for them. And it was so unhealthy. So unhealthy. So much so that I feel like life brought me a real toxic relationship just to show me how unhealthy it was. Because we would both do it. And it was almost to the degree that we were resenting each other for not being what the other person needed. It was insane. It was insane. Like, when we first got together, we talked about what we wanted in a relationship and what we would not do. Yeah, we talked about our boundaries and what we did not want in a relationship. But by the end of our relationship, I found myself doing exactly everything that I said I did not want, and he was doing everything he said he did not want, just to meet each other's needs. And yeah, I hated being in the relationship, but I hated being out of it because, again, I didn't know who I was. So I had to go through this whole reforming of the mind. And this is actually how this season came to you today. Because I had to sit down and realize I am expecting the clouds to cover me when in reality I can just get a blanket. I am expecting the rain to shower me with love when really I should just go take a shower and light a candle. I am expecting these other people to read my thoughts when all I really need is to journal and get my thoughts out so I can see what I need and I can perform it the way that I need to do it. You are the sky, not the storm. And I know that when I was talking about the storm, I was talking about the events and everything happening outside of you. But this story is more about how I found out I was the sky. You are the sky. And honey, it's so funny because it's so funny. It's so funny because I realized, you know that phrase, the sky's the limit? The sky's infinite. There is no limit. The only limits we have are the limits that we place on ourselves. And when we are expecting someone else to meet our needs, we are placing those limits on ourselves. That is exactly what's happening when we expect someone else to meet that need. Because we're saying to ourselves that we can't. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. However, baby, it is empowering to meet your own needs. It is empowering to uphold your own boundaries. It is empowering to know that you yourself can take care of yourself. And when someone comes and they pour into you, you can pour back into them without feeling, and you guys can do, how do I say this? When you go and pour into somebody else, you are no longer feeling like you're pouring out of an empty cup because you have filled into yourself. instead of just pouring out hoping that someone else will pour into you. So again, guys, you are the sky. You are not the storm. Now, thank you for joining me for another Soul Podcast episode. I wish you all the best on your SOL journey.